Video today I'm going to compare 21 and 22 Jump Street to Tooth Fairy 1 of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and then the sequel to that, Tooth Fairy 2, which has a different main character but it's the same idea. First of all, when you look at highest Rotten Tomatoes score for each franchise, man, the scores are pretty low with Tooth Fairy. Both movies are rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. With 21 and 22 Jump Street, both movies are fresh, actually. The first one, 21, is 85%. And then 22 Jump Street has an 84%. So, wow, they're really, really close. The highest score for Jump Street franchise, 85%. The highest score for Tooth Fairy franchise is literally only 36%. Then when you look at lowest score, well, the Tooth Fairy franchise, the first movie only has a 17%. 22 Jump Street is an 84%. That's literally the lowest score, and 84% is still really, really good. So Jump Street wins again. And then you can tell already which one is the higher average. Jump Street average of 84.5, of Tooth Fairy only an average of 26. Then when you look at gap between lowest and highest score, as we've already established, really, Jump Street wins this one because there's literally only a gap of 1% between the two movies. With Tooth Fairy, you have a gap of 19, so Jump Street already is going to win this debate regardless of my personal opinion. But let's look at which franchise I prefer. In the case of the Tooth Fairy movies, I just think these are fun, lighthearted, entertaining movies. And I like the concept here. They have this adult that tells the kid, hey, the Tooth Fairy doesn't exist. It's not real. The kid is hurt, and then our main character learns, oh, there are these Tooth Fairies. They actually do exist. They're not happy about me spreading disbelief about them. So as punishment, I now have to be a Tooth Fairy temporarily, get teeth from kids so that they'll actually believe in Tooth Fairies once more. In the case of the first movie, I have this character played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who ends up connecting with his family more because of temporarily being a Tooth Fairy. Like by the end of the movie, he actually is there with this. He actually is there with his family at this important event which is happening at the school for his son. In the second movie, of this guy who had one lucky thing happen to him that like made him famous, but he's feeling pretty washed out at first. He hasn't really had success in his life. He just got lucky once. And then he accidentally says to a kid the Tooth Fairy isn't real. He's forced to temporarily become a Tooth Fairy, and that leads to him connecting with this girl that he dated, who he hasn't actually married yet. She's going to get married to this other guy, but then she sees him change for the better, become more responsible, connect more with kids, and so she sees his good qualities and thus actually does end up marrying him. In the case of the Jump Street franchise, the premise is you have these police officers who are asked to go undercover as high school students to try to expose crime. I think it has to do with drugs. So they're posing as high school students to like bust a drug ring. I think that's how it plays out. I've watched 21 Jump Street before, but not recently. I don't remember when exactly I even watched it. It was years ago, so I don't remember all the details off the top of my head. I just remember the basic premise, whereas I've watched the Tooth Fairy movies more recently. When it comes to which franchise I prefer, personally, I would say that this is not a knock against the Tooth Fairy movies, but I think the premise of 21 Jump Street is just a bit more fun. It's more original. I mean, with Tooth Fairy, we've seen this type of being explored in other movies. One example that comes to my mind immediately is Rise of the Guardians from DreamWorks, but I'm sure there are other cases as well of movies that are about a Tooth Fairy. So it's more well explored territory, whereas while obviously, yes, there are movies out there about police officers going undercover, right? That's not anything new. But this specific premise of police officers going undercover as high school students is pretty interesting, I would say. So I have to give the edge to Jump Street. I think 21 Jump Street is really funny, movie that's entertaining. I like the way it looks. There's not like a ton of flashy visuals or anything like that, so it's not visually impressive the same way that a Marvel movie is, for example, but the visuals work. They get the job done. I think it's interesting story of characters you enjoy spending time with. And it's impressive to me the sequel is received literally just about as well as the first film. I mean, with the Two Fairy movies, I will say I don't immediately see why it is that critics have such a problem with these movies, why they rated them so badly. I mean, I think that they work. So this is one case, along with others actually, where I don't agree with the critical consensus for these movies. I mean, I think that Dwayne the Rock Johnson is a good actor because he's just really charismatic. He's fun, entertaining to watch. Is he the greatest thespian out there? No, of course he's not, but he's really fun guy to watch on screen. But that will be it for this video. I don't really have anything else to say. When it comes to the Two Fairy movies, I mean, I like the world of the Two Fairies that's established in there. I think it's pretty interesting. I like the acting along with the stories, I would say. But yeah, that'll wrap things up for this video here.